If Michael Mann's Heat, Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon, and Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde are firmly etched in the inner sanctum of all-time great bank robbery movies, which movies would you say are on par, or perhaps rank one tier below? Baby Driver, The Thomas Crown Affair, Inside Man, Hell or High Water? What about lesser-known examples like The Lookout, The Brink's Job, or The Friends of Eddie Coyle? While there's no right or wrong answer, one brazen, criminally overlooked bank heist film that holds up well over 30 years later is Killing Zoe. The feature film debut of writer-director Roger Avery. But behind the cult status hides a story wilder than the film itself. One that starts with a lie, a bank that wasn't supposed to be used, and ends with the director literally breaking into an editing room to steal his movie back. Dubbed Generation X's first bank caper movie by Roger Ebert, Killing Zoe was released in 1993 and has since become a minor cult classic among crime film buffs. What fans of the film may not know is that, despite being set in Paris on Bastille Day, the movie was almost entirely shot in Los Angeles. Moreover, the development of the film began in earnest when scouting locations for the jewel heist in Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, with Avery and Tarantino's creative rapport continuing through Pulp Fiction. From Avery's story inspiration to the writing and casting phase to the rapid 25-day film shoot and eventual sequel made 16 years later, it's time to crack the vault and discover what the happened to Killing Zoe.
You'll get well. Then I'll show you the real Paris.
As alluded to, Killing Zoe was conceived while producer Lawrence Bender was scouting locations in Los Angeles for Quentin Tarantino's feature film debut, Reservoir Dogs. Avery, a longtime friend and colleague of Quentin Tarantino from their days working at the Video Archives rental store, heard that Bender had found an ideal location at the Farmers and Merchants Bank, situated at 401 South Main Street in downtown Los Angeles, that would make a memorable movie setting. However, since Reservoir Dogs was about an unseen jewel heist, there was no good reason to use the bank for the film. Yet, determined to keep the inspired location, Bender telephoned every screenwriter he knew and asked if they had a script that was set in a bank. Without missing a beat, Avery jumped at the opportunity by lying and telling Bender he had written a script that takes place in a bank. With 6 days until he was set to meet with Bender and deliver the script in person, Avery quickly toured the bank's layout and stitched together a first draft over the weekend, and gave it a polish before handing it over to Bender. Despite the rapid first draft being written without an outline, Avery's vision was crystallized from the start: to make a hyper-violent, quote, art house film for both the coffeehouse crowd and the exploitation crowd, unquote. Avery also wanted to reflect how his generation of filmmakers fostered a sense of nihilism in their work. When writing the script, Avery had Eric Stoltz in mind for the lead role of Zed, a professional American safecracker who travels to Paris to help his old friend Eric, played by Jean-Hugh Anglade, pull off a daring bank heist the following day as France celebrates Bastille Day. According to Avery, once Anglade agreed to star in the movie, the project came together quickly. Tarantino wanted to play Eric himself, but Avery couldn't see his buddy playing a Frenchman and politely declined. Avery was also inspired by his own experience backpacking through France 4 years earlier and incorporated several biographical elements into the screenplay. When Tarantino read the first draft, he quipped that it should be titled Roger Takes a Trip, for how much it mirrored Avery's real life. As for the title, Killing Zoe, it's worth noting that Zoe translates to life in Greek. Therefore, Killing Life is an ironic title that Avery feels accurately describes Eric's violently destructive behavior throughout the film. Avery also insists that the bank's labyrinthine interior symbolizes Eric's brain, Some have theorized that Zed contracts HIV from Eric after being exposed to his blood, to which Avery responded by saying, quote, "Look at the title," unquote. When casting the role of Zoe, lovely French actress Julie Delpy was hesitant to work with the first-time filmmaker, especially having just finished working with the great Polish director Krzysztof Kiełowski on the Three Colors trilogy. Yet, having a random encounter with a tarot reader on the Venice Beach boardwalk, Delpy was told that she would soon go on a great spiritual journey. Since Killing Zoe was the only project she had been considering at the time, Delpy took the chance card reading as a sign to accept the role of Zoe. To prepare the cast for the right mindset, Avery handed out copies of Beowulf before shooting commenced. While it's unclear how Beowulf relates to Killing Zoe, Avery went on to direct a stage adaptation of Beowulf in France after feeling burned out once Killing Zoe was completed. Avery also co-wrote the 2007 cinematic version of Beowulf, directed by Robert Zemeckis. Upon hiring director of photography Tom Richmond, Avery urged the cinematographer to think of the bank as though it were the Overlook Hotel from The Shining, a dizzying and disorienting space with sinister architecture and a mind of its own that reflects the main character's decaying psychological state. And just when the cameras finally rolled, everyone wondered if the rookie director would even survive day one. Producers had a backup filmmaker waiting in the wings. Once the script was in shooting shape, Avery met with producer Samuel Hadida, who previously produced True Romance, which Avery co-wrote with Tarantino. With Bender's help as an executive producer and international pre-sales, Avery crafted a fake trailer comprised of footage from various American and European crime films from the 70s and 80s to show investors. As such, Avery secured an estimated $1.5 million budget and a 25-day film shoot that extended to 34 days. As a result, principal photography on Killing Zoe commenced on January 25, 1993, and wrapped on February 27th.
Hey, slowly.
Okay.
The 34-day film shoot occurred almost entirely in the Los Angeles area, with only the opening and closing shots of a car touring Paris shot on location in France after the production wrapped. Although unseen, Anglade is the one driving during the bookend shots of Paris. Since Avery wrote all the French dialogue in English, Anglade also helped translate the script to make the language more authentic. Beyond the bank located downtown, Zed's Hotel Bonaparte was filmed at the Mondrian Hotel on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. The first thing filmed for Killing Zoe was the strung-out heroin Dixie Jazz nightclub scene. Although the nightclub was modeled after the Parisian hotspot The Cave, the scene was shot in a warehouse in downtown LA. Due to Avery being a first-time director, the producers were worried about his abilities and kept a close eye on the set. The producers even had Ilsa, she-wolf of the SS director Don Edmonds, on hand in case Avery needed to be replaced on the spot. Adding to the risky nature of the nightclub scene, Killing Zoe is most notable for its inventive use of the new Otto Nemens swing and tilt lenses. The lenses were used to create the distorted perspective of the bank robbers while they were high on heroin, with the soft blur effect becoming one of the movie's unforgettable signatures. The animated music notes on screen were hand-drawn by an old-school Looney Tunes artist. As for the woman in the club who implores Zed to treat her like a dog, the actress is Cecilia Peck, the daughter of Oscar-winning American actor Gregory Peck. Avery admitted that when Cecilia arrived on set to film the scene, he mistook her for a drag queen. Now, just before the crew heads off to the nightclub, Eric's pal Gene, played by Cario Salem, urges Zed to smoke opium. Gene utters the line, quote, "It will make you feel like the whole world is in a bubble of glass, and you're rubbing up against it like a bad windshield wiper," unquote. Avery translated this description verbatim from Salem after the two met to discuss the project before filming. The two got stoned, so stoned on weed that Salem became violently ill and threw up all over Roger in his house, and stated the line that made it into the movie. Although Zed was written as the only character who doesn't smoke cigarettes or fire a gun, Stoltz insisted he do both on screen. The instance when Zed mercifully shoots a bank guard was done to satisfy Stoltz and allow him to fire a gun in a movie for the first time in his career. Taking full ownership of the character, Stoltz stated, quote, "It's so refreshing not to play a nice guy. In reality, I'm such an asshole, and it's great to play a character that I finally relate to," end quote. Killing Zoe also marked Delpy's first time handling a gun in a movie, which she claimed was more fun than having sex. As for the bank guard's facial burns, the legendary horror makeup and FX artist Tom Savini achieved the effect using nothing but Vaseline, toilet paper, and paint. Savini worked on the film as a favor to Avery, and the two would collaborate again on the 1995 TV movie Mr. Stitch. In terms of the Killing Zoe's aesthetic design, fans may have noticed the white, blue, and red color scheme that mirrors both the American and French flags. This was done deliberately, with the first portion of the film bathed in white, the second act dipped in blue, and the final act in the bank drenched in a deeper and darker red as the movie progresses. Subtle costumes and lighting cues were used to accentuate the gradual color scheme, including Zed's flannel shirt, which alters from blue to red as the story unfolds. Inspired by Roman Polanski's camera work on Repulsion, the shots inside Eric's apartment were filmed from a fixed angle without camera movement. Speaking of Eric's apartment, the poster for Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill was also written by Avery into the screenplay for True Romance. The late, great director Tony Scott kept Avery's wish and had the poster mounted in Dick and Floyd's apartment. Far from the only De Palma ode in Killing Zoe, the dual diopter shot of Zed and Eric in the nightclub is also an homage to De Palma's classic split-screen usage. Meanwhile, fans may not have noticed that Zed and Zoe do not appear in the same shot together until after they make love in the hotel. This was a prime directive of Douglas Sirk, the master of melodrama, who once declared, quote, "Only unite two characters in a frame if they should be united emotionally," end quote. The shot of Zed and Zoe laughing intimately together in bed was captured by Avery secretly without the actors being aware. Avery noticed how playful the two were together, picked up a camera, and began rolling without anyone realizing what was happening. Avery has called the shot one of his favorites in the film. Another memorable shot comes when Eric sheds tears of joy upon first seeing the gold bars inside the bank. Those were genuine tears from Anglade, who filmed the shot on the last day of principal photography. It wasn't that Anglade was elated to see real gold. Those are bittersweet tears that came naturally after realizing that such a fun and fulfilling movie-making experience was over. Indeed, the main actors had a ball making Killing Zoe. In between takes, Delpy reportedly would frolic around the set completely topless. Meanwhile, Anglade amused the cast and crew by dancing around the set in pigtails. Anglade even improvised the magic trick that Eric performs on screen, which became one of the poster's central images. Hell, even the disgraced porn star Ron Jeremy, who gets blasted with a shotgun in the film, called his cameo in Killing Zoe his top Hollywood movie appearance. As for the menacing masks worn by the bank robbers in the film, Avery took deliberate measures to ensure each one represented their personality. Avery had each actor work closely with costume designer Mary Claire Hannon to design their own masks. According to Avery, each mask is a clue about their character, saying that Stoltz immediately gravitated toward the wolf mask and Anglade to the Phantom Superstar mask. Avery also confessed that there were two sets of masks, one kept by the actors and one hanging in his home. Of course, Stoltz would go on to star as heroin dealer Lance in Pulp Fiction the following year. What many might not know is that Avery, who co-wrote Pulp Fiction, had to withdraw from writing the script as Killing Zoe entered production. Even so, Tarantino remained on the set of Killing Zoe and watched all the daily rushes with the cast and crew. The more Tarantino would burst into laughter during the goriest bouts of violence, the more Avery and Richmond knew they were on the right track. Not for nothing, but Pulp Fiction also features a deplorable criminal named Zed, who theoretically could be infected with HIV as well.
Whose chopper is this?
Zed's.
Who's Zed?
Zed's dead, baby.
So it's impossible to talk about Killing Zoe without mentioning the mood-setting music by American duo Tom Hajdu and Andy Milburn, better known as Tom and Andy. Avery hired Tom and Andy because their rock-inspired compositions reminded him of Goblin and Tangerine Dream. Killing Zoe marked Tom and Andy's first full film score, launching an impressive filmography that includes The Strangers, P2, Girl House, Sinister 2, and additional Avery movies, The Rules of Attraction and Lucky Day. One last thing worth mentioning about Killing Zoe is the sneaky editing process Avery used to retain his unwavering vision and earn an R rating. When submitting his preferred cut, the MPAA ratings board was outraged by the intense violence and graphic carnage on screen and forced Avery to make severe edits. Yet, because the movie was made quickly, independently, and on a limited budget, Avery did not have a wealth of alternate angles and footage to use in place of the cuts. As a result, Avery whittled the film down as much as possible without compromising the integrity and impact. Even so, the cuts were deemed insufficient, and Avery was ejected from the editing suite. Although Catherine Himoff is credited as the editor, Stanley Kubrick's editorial associate, Martin Hunter, was brought in to cut Killing Zoe. Despite getting along with him personally, Avery detested the edits Hunter made and went into a panic. As Avery tells it, he broke into the editing room one night, restored all the previous shots and sequences that Hunter had removed, and reconformed the film back to his original vision. Avery ensured that the frame count was much lower than the original cut, indicating to the ratings board that sufficient material had been excised. Because the reduced frame count made it appear as though the film was edited to the MPAA's liking, Avery was able to send out his preferred version of the film to have its negative cut for the final print without the MPAA realizing what had happened. In other words, Avery bypassed the MPAA's ratings board and got the movie he wanted to make released in theaters. Pretty badass for a film with punk rock anarchy from start to finish. Speaking of releases, Killing Zoe first toured the Circuit Festival before opening theatrically. After making its North American premiere at the 1994 Sundance Film Festival, Dennis Hopper, Dario Argento, and Roger Vadim served as jury members. Killing Zoe also won the 1994 Cannes Prix Special Award. Released by October Films, Killing Zoe opened in US theaters on August 19, 1994. Although the film grossed just $418,000 in global ticket sales, it performed much better on home video and eventually broke even with its estimated $1.5 million budget. Over the last 30 years, Killing Zoe has overcome its poor critical reception and pathetic 36% Rotten Tomatoes rating to become a beloved cult classic 90s crime movie. The film launched the filmmaking career of Roger Avery, who long planned a direct sequel to Killing Zoe called Lucky Day. In 2019, Avery made a semi-sequel called Lucky Day, although the story was changed so drastically that it bears little resemblance to the original. So yeah, that's essentially what the happened to Killing Zoe. The film was conceived while looking for locations for Reservoir Dogs. Despite Feeling like an authentic French crime caper, the film was shot almost entirely in Los Angeles. Avery, drawn to the European art house sensibilities and hyper-violent American exploitation flicks like Coffee and Rolling Thunder, stuck to his guns and made the movie he had always envisioned, despite having a lack of time, resources, and MPAA support. Not only does the film hold up 30 years later, but it also features some of the best work that Avery, Stoltz, Delpy, and Ungod have done in their careers.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.